Hi, my name is Michelle Boulé, and thank you for being here to listen to my next interview in this series of conversations that I am having with people who I believe are carrying potent medicine for us in this moment. Their teachings, their experiences, the ways that they are perceiving the world. And if you know my work, I tap into a lot of different resources and like to go deep. So I've just been going through my field of people that I love and thinking, okay, my community needs to hear this information. So I hope you enjoy these. Listen, get to the end, share it with people you love, and just thank you. Welcome to this next conversation as part of the Fierce Wisdom series. I am super duper excited to have a dear colleague, friend, practitioner, Paola Ranova, here today. And she is just a fellow, I would say, encyclopedia of wisdom. I feel like as an energy healer, you're drawing on so much. You even have your PhD. You have done your research on this work. I've read two of your books. I've done your courses. I've worked with you as a practitioner, and I've used your work in my sessions with my clients from varying degrees. I'll just go in and drop in into the Cardinal Method practitioner course and be on a walk and I'll listen to it. And I just know, like, oh, this is the thing I need to bring in for this person. And the timing always works out perfectly. So, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored, not only for being here, but also for having you on this journey. It's been a long time, right? And you've always
Yes.
been holding hands with me with my expansion, with my deep dives. And I feel very, very grateful and blessed to have you on my journey too.
Thank you. Well, let me just say how we met because for people just to have context for the work that we both do, I believe it was probably 2012, 2013 when we met in Miami. I'm pretty sure taking a body talk course. It might have been the microbiome course or the epigenetics course. I can't remember. And I was like, who is this being? Who is this being? And we probably did, I know we did a trade, we did sessions on each other in that practice. And then it might have been that same year or the next year when I saw you lead one of the presentations for the Body Talk conference. And you did a session with the founder, John Veltheim. And I was reflecting on this yesterday and how I just felt the whole room just like soften into presence, I would say, soften into the constellation, which is another part of your work, the family constellation work, to bring healing that is universal, through the founder of Body Talk, Dr. Veltheim, healing to all of us because the principles are so universal. So I just want to that's our initial connection. And then I worked with you as a practitioner. You took me through uh, a conclusion of a relationship and a blossoming into a next chapter. So I would love for you to just say, I mean, anything you have in response to that, but to tell us what are the seeds of this work? I mean, I know it started early for you, and I'm jumping to like later in that development. So,
I love
floor is
it.
yours.
Thank you. Well, when I'm as you walk me through this journey in time, right? I'm so marveled by how holographic the
Mm.
energy world really is, and everything happens at the same time. There's no, linear time for this kind of work. But if I were to describe this in a nutshell, if we talk about the spiritual, the rational, which are masculine energies in the cardinal method understanding, if you guys are familiar, the cardinal method is a system I've developed based on my own personal medicine, which is something that the indigenous wisdom will tell us. You first develop your personal medicine and then it becomes a system to help others heal. So it started spiritually, and I had no idea that I was already on the Cardinal Method development journey. I was 7 years old. I was so fascinated with Jesus, but my family was not religious. My parents weren't religious. They actually still do, they still have um, they questioned the Catholic Church. So they said, I'm not going to baptize my children. And that in Brazil, I was born in Brazil. So Brazil was a very Catholic Church Catholic country at the time. And we were the weirdos, my brother and I, because my parents did not baptize us. But I was very spiritual, and my idea of spirituality was religious. But it wasn't the church, it was Jesus, it was his path, it was him as an inspiration. And I
Mm,
believe that the Cardinal Method to this day is a system that encourages us to embody our higher selves and to be the higher light of the world and to be of service from a place of overflow from the heart. So whatever touches my heart, whatever touched my heart and still does, became part of the system. It's a heart-centered system. The Cardinal Method, cardio, cardinal, it's got a lot of, the etymology of that is a myriad of things, but it's based on love. And I knew that Jesus felt love for humanity, and I wanted to follow his footsteps. I was 7 years old. From age 7 to age 11, when I lived in the US, my father came as a medical doctor for a year to get training. And then when I moved here in Chicago, something else clicked that was also spiritual, which because we lived next to the Baha'i temple. And I had
mm,
never seen such beauty, spiritual beauty in the world. So then at age 11, something else clicked that was also spiritual. But then I started getting panic attacks and anxiety attacks, which I did not know were psychic gifts starting to emerge. And no one could help me. My parents were not religious, they were not spiritual, they respected me, but they didn't know what to do with a psychic child, right? Who sees
mm,
ghosts, who sees spirits, who can tap into people's fields without being asked, who can read minds sometimes when people are very aggressive. So I was shocked with all of that. And
mm,
since then we were back in Brazil. I was about 14, and no one could help me. And the people from the spiritual religions that believed in past lives said that you had to be 18 to get training, to understand, to create some structure for your psychic gifts. That's when I
mm,
understood that a lot of people who are labeled with mental illness, if only they had had shamanic training, if only
right.
they had been born in indigenous cultures, they would have been respected and also honored for their psychic gifts and not demonized or even, labeled as incapable, because that's actually a gift. It's something that is beyond their human, our, cookie cutter human, rational, materialistic idea of a human being. So I did something for myself and I said, I need to do this on my own if no one's going to help me, or no one in the material, physical, human world is going to help me. So I dove
Mm,
into books. I said, I need my rational mind to be structured so I
mm,
don't go crazy with all the spirituality. So I decided to read and dive into Greek philosophy, Hellenic philosophy, and yoga for my body. And the third thing I did, which is the beginning of the Cardinal Method, was I went go to the gardens and grab garden stones. It wasn't like fancy crystals or any of that. It was just regular, stones on the garden. And they calmed me down. So I said, okay, there's a spiritual reality, there's a rational reality that helps me understand the world, there's an emotional reality which gives me anxiety, and there's a physical reality which is calming down the body with yoga and also being in nature. And rocks really grounded me. So I said, there's something to this. And I started creating a parallel life. I became a very, very dedicated student in the academic world in high school and then university and then a master's degree, a PhD, and I became a professor. That was one half of my life. And the world knew that persona that was validated by society, which is very masculine, wearing suits and being in institutions, political scientists. I lived in Brasilia, so that's the capital of Brazil. I was always with the politicians and the ministers and all that and teaching. But I did have a softer spiritual side that I would I would create breathwork sessions in the waterfalls in Brazil with my friends, with my hippie
It's
friends.
it's just so amazing. Like if anyone, I'm sure someone who's sensitive and is just listening to this can feel it, but seeing you, watching you kind of like go from that masculine energy to like your voice shifts, your posture changes, the whole field changes to bring in the feminine. It's just really lovely to see.
Yeah, but I had to hide the feminine to survive in a hostile environment because I don't know if if in the US, people in DC, I lived in Brussels for a little bit, so that's an international political center as well. when you live in big cities that are political centers, you are, as a survival mechanism, you're drawn to be rational and you're like a go-getter and a empower oriented, right? But there,
Mm,
if you have a softer side to your personality, which is my truth, so I would cultivate that taking tarots. I took the tarot courses. I did all the Enneagram trainings. I would go to the waterfalls and do breathwork sessions there and still be in yoga. But that was my the closet Paula, right? No one knew. Only my hippie friends knew about that. And I never, ever, ever thought that all that spiritual knowledge, wisdom, and all that embodiment and practice would become my career.
mm,
So when I became a professor at the university, I was 31 years old. So I was at the top of the food chain. And if you think about status and safety, it's not, you're not a millionaire as a university professor, but you are guaranteed, right? Your shelter, your food for the rest of your life in Brazil, at
mm,
least. My soul was dying. And on the emotional level, I was also not doing well at all. So I was a great performer professionally, but I would not even look or feel my emotions and made very poor choices romantically. So I got married at 20. I was, I had a 10-year relationship, started dating at 17, married the guy at 24, divorced him at 27, Saturn return, astrology. I would study astrology every other Sunday from 7 to 12 for years. So I would like create a little space and time for me to dive into the knowledge of astrology and not just the academic world that I needed to as a professor, right? So when I started looking at myself, I'm like, okay, my life is very imbalanced because
mm,
I have this successful image on the professional field, but I don't want to say the word failure, but I am unhappy emotionally. I don't even know how to make emotional choices, friendships and romantic relationships. So that's when the last piece of the puzzle came, no, the second to last, because then I started working on myself with individual sessions emotionally, which was something I avoided because I thought it made me vulnerable and weak with all that power oriented personality. So the path work really helped me. I got into behavioral psychology, and my psychologist also worked with the transpersonal approach and the path work of self transformation. So that opened a door for my individual real self to come forth. And I became a little more softer. I created more space in my life, which was not just work, 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 right? Not a workaholic anymore. And when made poor choices emotionally again, and then my almost second marriage, I was going to get married and it ended horribly. I said, I need help. I am not a perfect person. I am not Wonder Woman. I have a lot of pain and my shadow is eating my life away. And I was 33 at the time, 34. That's when I got into family constellations. And that's the last piece of the puzzle that really clicked in place. That's when I feel I really aligned with my Dharma, with my sacred path, because family constellations are all about the unconscious mind, emotional healing, and group belonging. If you are an empath, if you are a psychic, you're sponging up the external contents of the environment you're in. And the environment is not just physical. We have emotional environments we're immersed in since birth, which is our ancestral family. It's literally an ocean of emotions that we tap into. It's in our DNA, it's in our cells. So once I understood that, I cleared away so much baggage that wasn't even mine on the ancestral level. And then my life started to skyrocket. I got married at the time. We moved to the United States again because I always knew I would live in the US. I didn't think it would be Florida, but I always knew I would come back and live here because it felt like home when I lived in Chicago.
mhm,
And I was going to develop a postdoctoral research at the University of Miami. I was going to replicate my thesis, which was about two different indigenous cultures in Brazil. And I was going to replicate those to North American cultures. So South America, not just Brazil, Brazil and Peru. It was the Incas and the Tupinambás. So I wanted to replicate that methodology with the indigenous people of the in the New North America, particularly the Hopi, which is a society that lived near Sedona, and they were based in love. The social fabric of the Hopis was love, which is not politics, which is not power, it's not money, it's none of that. So that's beautiful. And I was going to
Mhm.
research the Aztecs, which were an empire. The Toltecs were absorbed by the Aztecs, but I digress, right? So I wanted to study different indigenous societies that brought in the spiritual world and nature as something that is part of our social world and not something we get away from,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when I lived in Florida, when I moved to Florida, I had that going at UM. But then you mentioned body talk, right?
Mhm.
For self-care, I took a body talk access course. And the moment the instructor, Mina Campus, started teaching us about the cortices technique and the science behind energy, my academic brain said, okay, I can actually embrace this because this is serious business and it merges and integrates everything that I believe in. And I told my husband at the time, I don't think I want to be an academic anymore. I'm going to change
Mhm.
careers. And he said, go for it. And the body
Mhm.
talk system embraced me. I already had the Cardinal method developed in Brazil, and I became a local energy healing professional. I tested the Cardinal method for 4 years and I knew that it worked. And then I became a spiritual entrepreneur. I created online courses and started teaching people everything that I just told you about.
Wow. Okay.
It's a
So
lot.
I hope you guys were just sponging all of that up because obviously, like I said, this woman is an encyclopedia of information. I think I would love just because, I'm familiar with your system. I've studied it, I've received it, I use it. If you could just like say, these are the pillars. These are the pillars of this work.
So the Cardinal method is a system that brings soul healing if needed. And I started to understand that it's always needed. Soul healing is always needed, right?
Mhm.
So heal your soul and your emotions through consciousness expansion. And once you heal your soul enough, you can dedicate yourself to consciousness expansion more than soul healing. The result of soul healing and consciousness expansion is the joy of life. So how do you tap into the joy of life? Four inspirations, what I call the four foundational pillars of the Cardinal method. Indigenous wisdom, which I've mentioned, through the forces of nature. When you commune with nature, when you're there, you feel the joy of life. So crystals, animals, plants,
Mhm.
you know, your actual real human nature, because a lot of people, what a lot of people call human nature, and I say this as a political scientist, is actually human distortions. Our nature is loving. Our nature is beautiful. It's good. We come from the light. Okay? That's my take on it. So, indigenous wisdom is one of the pillars. It's one path to the joy of life through the forces of nature and through the wisdom that they have, which is very much about nature. Then, the Western philosophy body of knowledge that was my academic background. So, that structures your mind. It's not just unconscious healing and cathartic experiences. The more you sharpen your brain, the more empowered you are in a divine way. It's not power over people, it's not an ego trip. It literally is stepping into your superpowers or your superhuman self or your superconscious mind, embodying your higher self requires you to sharpen your brain and learn and dedicate, your mind to excellence and bring more knowledge to your life. So that's the Western philosophy piece. But it's also the Hindu pillar because I've come to realize as a researcher that most of the things that were said in the Hellenic world in ancient Greece were actually brought in from the Hindus, and so was the Chinese medicine, so was Confucius. A lot of that came from the University of India way back, But
Mhm.
again, I digress. So the third pillar is the Hindu system, the Hindu chakra system more than anything else, and the Hindus also embrace a connection with nature. They use crystals, depending on in the huge world of Hinduism, right? Where you travel, because there are different approaches there. But the Cardinal method uses the chakra system with colors and a lot of that the approach of with nature as well, and the physical body and all of that wisdom and yoga. And the last piece of the puzzle, which is family constellations, which is probably why the cardinal method is most well known, because we use constellation. I've developed a system within the constellations that use crystals to heal. So there's a huge difference between a regular or traditional family constellation, with all due respect, and a cardinal method constellation that uses crystals and also brings in the other approaches to the field. So the
Yeah.
four pillars are constellations, which came from Africa and were developed by a German thinker, Bert Hellinger, indigenous wisdom, the Hindu chakra system, and Western philosophy.
Okay, beautiful. So I mean, it's just I continue to expand and, feeling all the depth that is the foundation of your work. I would love it if you could share, because my entry point was this family constellation that you did in front of, I don't know how many hundreds of people were at that conference, um, with Dr. Veltheim. And I want to briefly just say, Body Talk is the way we were connected. And for people who don't know what that system is, it's based on uh, communication with each person's innate wisdom. It's still a system I use. And that because of stress or trauma, injury, the communication systems break down. So as a practitioner, we can use muscle testing, innate wisdom, intuition, getting our brain in a particular state where we can access information to figure out what the priorities are for healing. So I just want to say this for anyone who's unfamiliar with the energy work that we're connected with. And then there's tapping involved to tap that into the three brain centers to integrate the wisdom. So it's healing on a consciousness level. And for me, it's still a tool. And then I integrate it into embodiment. But I want to go to a session with you. As you and we've been practicing this work and studying so many different modalities in so many ways. So even though you're getting perhaps what would look like a family constellation. And this is what I would love for you to describe if someone does a visualizing the soul session with you, what it looks like. Because I think we've heard like it's pulling on all this information. But if someone's like, Paula, I want to do a session, can you describe what that would look like?
Yeah, thank you for, all your input. And yes, we did meet through Body Talk, which is a system that I also still use that I adore. And there are two ways of having constellations. First of all, constellation, whenever you have a constellation, the word constellation means it's a group, right? And it's about your place and size in your family system and aligning you with three principles, which are hierarchy, belonging, and balance. Balance in giving and receiving. So parents give to their children and children receive from parents. But if we have difficult personalities, or if we don't have enough soul education, we may behave as children with our own children, and then the energy inverts, right? So we see a lot of people taking emotional care of their parents, parents behaving in a childish way, but the biggest aha of constellations is not the family of origin in your childhood and your parents. It's what you're carrying on your unconscious mind and maybe reliving the life scripts, the painful life scripts of your ancestors. So there are two ways of living according to constellations, and this is very basic. This is something that the Zulus in South Africa taught their 3-year-old children. So a lot of traditional cultures have soul education as a given, and we don't in our Western cultures, right? But what is easy for a 3-year-old to understand, so the unconscious mind is very simple. It needs to understand that parents are big and children are small, and Christianity also has that in the Ten Commandments, right? Honor mother and father, honor your ancestors, honor your origin. So when we emotionally disrespect our parents, we judge their personalities, we see their weaknesses, we expect them to be whatever we want them to be, or when we unconsciously are trapped into an ancestral story that may have been painful, and that is emotional unfinished business in our DNA, that is going to trickle down to the life paths of the descendants. So traditional constellations are going to say that we are here to purify the unfinished business, the painful stories that were still open wounds in the family soul, from the third and fourth generations. So we're very connected to our grandparents and great grandparents more than anything else. What mostly influences our lives negatively are the painful stories of grandparents and great grandparents. So that's a
So
traditional
can you
constellation. Yeah.
can you say why it skips parents? Because usually for many people, they spend most of their time with their parents.
hmm the reason why is that hierarchy is generational. That's again one thing that I brought in, an approach I brought into my constellation training. I was like, the soul is mathematical, geometrical. If you understand physics, you understand the soul. Because the weight of the ancestor and also the strength of an ancestor is huge. So a seventh generation ancestor is huge. And if you look at this from a quantum perspective, the amount of energy they have in a family system. A little baby in what we're calling the first generation is tiny. A seventh generation ancestor is huge. A sixth generation ancestor is a little smaller, fifth, fourth, third, and the parents. So this is the way nature works on a soul level. Our parents, for the in this cardinal method understanding of constellations and in traditional constellations, the parents are vessels and vehicles for us to take the strength of life that we get from our ancestors.
Mm.
So, not to say there are five circles of love, according to Beth Hellinger. One of them is our childhood, but it's not as intense. It doesn't have as much power over us. It doesn't weigh down on us as much as an ancestral painful situation. Just because our ancestors have a larger quantum of energy, you know? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and I feel like it's really beautiful to hear this because so much therapeutic work is just in family of origin. And what you're bringing in, is that we're touched by more than we realize. So I think that is super powerful. And also, I would love it if you could just like really simply talk about the big and small, because I feel like this one, and this is a tool that I use a lot. I only have one crystal with me right now, but I'll literally hold a crystal up and frame it for someone if I'm doing a call online, um, to represent that geometry. And also another thing I'd love you to talk about is, because this is another one that's been so huge when working with my clients, is the directional aspect of the energy of the family.
Yes, I love that. Again, basic physics, right?
Mm.
The conscious mind is very visual. So optics, colors, refraction, sizes, when you actually illustrate it, that's why the system I've created for individual constellations is called visualizing the soul.
Mm.
It's because you can actually see the contents of your soul, of your inner world and your psyche through crystals, through their shapes, through their colors, through their sizes. So you illustrate it as if you were talking to a child because it is the inner child that's trapped in the ancestral pain. It is the
Mm.
mind of the child that has the blind love that wants to fix what was done in the past. The child doesn't know time, linear time, right? So once you explain this to the unconscious mind through the conscious mind, illustrating it with crystals, and again, crystals have power of their own. They have colors and internal geometry that really heal the soul. That align us. So again, when you talked about alignment, right, and the direction, again, for constellations, you're either honoring your parents or dishonoring them through judgment. And if you're trapped on a personality level, you're not seeing the actual, what really matters for life, which is your parents gave you life. Even if
Yes.
they're not nice, it's not about personality. That is childish. That's a child throwing a tantrum with superficial things. But
Yeah.
Hellinger used to say 97% is grace and 3% is, you know, a smudge there, but you're focusing on the rusty part of the whole picture, right? When you're
Okay.
living from the immaturity of the inner child. Yes.
Yes, I think we need to pull this out because I can hear people being like, well, they stay in blame of the parents or the story of the parents. But we did this multiple times. It was just like, thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for the gift of life. So is there anything else you would say to someone who's like, my parent is still in, mm, I think a lot of people listening to this, they're probably not in that blame anymore, but the stickiness that can still be there. And what we do with, I mean, I'm hearing you say it's also ancestral, but maybe just a simple tool for someone who still has that stickiness in their parental relationship.
Well, in a very simple way, even Sigmund Freud said that it's not
Mhm.
about your parents, it's about you making a choice to leave your parents alone in your own heart. That's him. That's Freud, right? But Hellinger, the creator of constellations, he was a priest, so he brings in a spiritual approach to this, which I love. And he says if we were to find the one root cause of all the problems of humanity, it
Mm,
is one single word, and this is not easy to hear because we need to be humble about it and we need to make a choice to stop living from the shadow and stop living from the demanding inner child and actually step into our adulthood and the maturity of our souls. Because the word that wrecks humanity, according to him, is arrogance.
mm,
When I'm demanding from my parents, I'm not being grateful. Oh, but they did this. Believe me, I worked in slums in Brazil. I worked with female violence. I saw women having 70% of their bodies being burned in what I used to work as an academic in the work that I used to do with the slums in Brazil. I know what it is to be in pain and parents actually hurting you in unimaginable and human ways.
mhm,
But if we as souls have decided to incarnate in that family system, our souls knew, and again, indigenous wisdom has a lot of that, shamanic work has a lot of that. Your soul knew the hard path that it chose to purify itself and feel all the horrible emotions and
mhm.
still choose love.
Yeah.
So all healing comes from love, and it's not going to happen overnight. We have sessions all the time. It's purification of the soul. We have daily self-care. We have one-on-one sessions every 2 weeks. We have group sessions every month in the Cardinal Method community. For this
Yeah.
very reason, we keep chipping away. We need to keep purifying our souls and choose love, and it is not easy. It
Yeah.
is not easy, especially if our parents are difficult. So when you free yourself from your parents, when you become an adult, and you accept, the key is acceptance, right? For
Mhm.
this whole dilemma. This is pink calcite, speaking of pink crystals, right? Pink calcite in the cardinal method is a crystal of self-acceptance, and accept your parents. Don't demand perfection from them. They already gave you life.
Yeah.
That's enough on its own. Everything
Great.
else is a bonus. So stop focusing on the gift wrap. You know what I mean? It isn't easy to
Mhm.
hear. I know it's tough love. The truth heals us, protects us. The truth prevents a lot of problems because the more we live in the painful emotions and the more demanding we are and the less grateful we are, the more painful our lives are going to be, you
Yeah.
know? And our parents are reacting to their parents who are our ancestors.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
So, okay, that's beautiful. Now I would love for you, because I know this is another question that people have, is to go laterally.
uh-huh.
Because we're going this way, right? We're going from ancestors onward. So laterally, I think of siblings, but for a lot of people, I think of partnership. Like
Yes.
like and I'm hearing, and I know this because I've done your gratitude practice in your first book. I've done that a number of times, which is something people can easily look at that book, and that book is so beautiful in the simplicity of the practices. And then the other book is then it goes into much more, of the this deep information. But yeah, I would love for you to speak about the lateral relationships. And for me, that brings up siblings, but also for a lot of people, partnership. So can you tell us about the power, go either one, siblings, partnership? How do we look for a good partner?
Thank you. I would love to dive into that. And I also want to thank you for saying this because the cardinal method practices are very simple and very fast and very easy. The theory is very monumental, I understand, but the practices are easy to do. Like you said, gratitude flow, the inner child practice. So That's something you don't even have to understand with your conscious mind. It just helps you on the emotional level. But when you talk about the lateral connections, there's also something like very like a small snippet of information I want to bring in, which is diagonal identification. Because
Mm.
sometimes we don't validate our parents because my mom is this, my dad is that. I love my cool aunt. I love my cool uncle. That is also a misalignment in the family soul. It's going to create a little bit of problem. I'm not going to dive too deep into that. But when it comes to the people who are equal to us, our siblings in our family of origin and in our childhood, and later on in life, our friends, our business partners, and our romantic relationships, if we don't heal the inner child, we're going to be projecting inner child wounds, which relate to the parents and relate to our siblings, or we may be projecting very painful life scripts on the romantic level from or the partnership level, because I've seen a lot of this in businesses as well. If the grandfather lost a farm, that repeats itself unconsciously on the grandson's life at some point. So that's why constellations are so healing, because they clear the energetic blueprint that is creating the manifested reality, right? So when it comes to finding not only an amazing romantic partner, but also friends that really resonate and business partners that you can really create cooperation with. It again comes from choosing love. It comes from developing wisdom. And it comes from choosing not to use your power to compete with someone else and use it to cooperate. Because the light, this is not constellations, this is the path work, right? Power, love, and wisdom also have a shadow side. So divine power is leadership, cooperation. You lead people who don't have your quantum of energy, who don't have your wisdom, who don't have your stamina. They need you to help them, so you lead them. You don't
Yeah.
manipulate them. You don't have power over them. You lead them and empower them. That's your gift.
Mm.
And when you see another powerful person, instead of going into competition, cooperate or respect them. But don't choose competition, because that's power without love and wisdom is very destructive, right? But love without power and wisdom is also destructive, because it's the shadow side of love is victimhood. So when it
Mhm.
comes to partners, observe what not me, spiritual literature in the 21st century calls the threefold flame in our hearts: divine love, divine wisdom, divine power. Divine love is pink, divine wisdom is yellow, and divine power is blue, if you want to dive into the color spectrum. And crystals of those colors help too, right? So I choose to live in divine love with this person, meaning I am going to choose love and not victimhood. In a nutshell, you're either in mature love or you're mature love. If you're in immature love, you're a victim. If you're in immature power, you're competing. You see that person as an enemy. And
Mhm.
if you're in immature wisdom, you're withdrawing. So
Ooh, same
wisdom,
with that one. Same with
clarification.
yeah,
Yeah.
same with the immature wisdom and withdrawing because I feel like that is the least clear one for power.
Yeah, we have all three: power, love, and wisdom in our hearts, right? But depending on your personality and your birth chart, this is one of the biggest cardinal method sciences, to be honest, because I told you I study astrology for a long time and I bring the crystals in, and you need to see the person's birth chart to see which one of the flames, power, love, or wisdom, is predominant, which one is halfway okay, we're okay with this one, and which one is the hardest thing in your life. Oh my God. But the hardest thing in your life, oh my God, is what makes you grow,
Mm.
right? In your astrology chart is the red lines, but it is getting you out of your comfort zone. And it is what's going to bring light to your blind spots. So divine power is leadership and cooperation. I'm not going to go to power struggle with my partner. I want to listen. So power and love and wisdom need to balance themselves out too. Power with love and wisdom is mature. Love with power and wisdom is mature, and wisdom with power and love is mature. But the problem is, if we're vibrating in the light, that's all good, but we all have a lower self. We all have a shadow side. So when we're vibrating in the shadow side of power, we are competing.
Yeah.
When we're vibrating in the shadow side of love, We are victims and we're doormats and we're clingy and we don't have any self respect. And when we are in the shadow side of wisdom, so the light of love is love, right? It's self-explanatory. The light side of wisdom is conversation, communication, and the truth. Just say the truth, even if it costs your relationship, but be brave to say the truth. That's why power helps wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Because wisdom without power is very fearful. It withdraws. It just cuts communication. It abandons. It's all those soul wounds that we're familiar with. Cardinal method talks about inner child wounds. There are 5 inner child wounds in the constellation training. I talk about that. But there are adult soul wounds such as injustice and rejection. But abandonment is an inner child wound. And that's the wisdom people. It's easier for them to just pretend this doesn't exist and I live in my own world inside my head. That's
Mm,
the shadow side of wisdom, right?
great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that yeah, the other ones felt clearer, but I feel like I think this is the beauty of your work is it has this structure. And obviously it's not like go do a 60-minute course. It's, and even, I don't know how many constellations I've done with you, probably at least 10,
Oh yeah.
if not more, maybe 20. I'd have to go back and count.
10 and 20.
Um,
But they space out because that constellations, visualizing the soul sessions are like surgery in the soul. It's like an
mhm.
intervention.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to get it out of your way. But you have the option of daily self-care with the meditations. You have one-on-one energy healing sessions that are silent techniques and kind of like body talk, embracing body talk and bringing other stuff. But when things are really going south, we need a stronger treatment, so to speak, which are the constellations. But we may need them from time to time,
Yeah.
every 6 months or every 2 years, it depends, or maybe 5 years from now. It's holographic, it's never going to be predictable. It depends on the person.
Definitely.
And the birth chart bracelet, because I create a bracelet with crystals and
Mhm.
the birth chart analysis, it's once in a lifetime. It's just one analysis. You get the bracelet because it's about the starting point of your soul, which is your birth. What you do with it is your free will,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I would love to just introduce one more little tool, before we wrap this up and or hear you speak about it, which is the importance of silence. And I love that from your first book. And I feel like it's so important in our culture right now. I mean, in my gene keys, my pearl is the gate of stillness. So like that silence is something I seek and I need my solitude to find that. But could you speak to why that tool is part of your system and why it's so important now and how to practice it?
I love that. Thank you so much. There are there are two big references of silence in the cardinal method, which is yoga and meditation and indigenous wisdom, which is also very much about silence. But constellations, when you have a big intervention like a constellation, or when you have a big revelation, the silence is the greatest soul healer. Conscious silence is the greatest soul healer. You're not going to silence your soul, right? You need to express it. But once you have the awareness, sitting still and digesting that is really where the healing is going to come from.
Mhm.
Because silence comes from the heart, it comes from your super conscious mind of your higher self. So we have a very loud unconscious mind when our emotions are in turmoil from the ancestral baggage, from the parents, from the childhood, and from our own, adult stuff. The unconscious mind can be very loud and screamy. Our conscious mind needs to verbalize things to feel in control, or needs to be thinking all the time to feel in control. So talking is a tool of the conscious mind, or maybe it is an anxious conscious mind, or thinking, right?
Mhm.
Silence is the language of spirit. It's the language of your higher self. Conscious silence, observing, feeling, and ultimately knowing. So the hardest and the most healing part of a constellation is conscious silence 48 hours after it happens. So I tell everybody, don't talk about the constellation. Don't disrupt it because a constellation is a surgery in the soul. You have the stitches. They need to heal. If you talk, you're going to be poking on the stitches and not allowing it to heal, opening the wound again, you
Mm.
know? Because
Mhm.
the conscious mind is trying to control and understand and get every single bit of information as something that I can grasp. No, we don't have to understand everything on a conscious mind level. It's all about feeling what is aligned, digesting it, and knowing. And when you know, you don't have to talk. Does that make
Oh, I
sense?
love this. It's like that alchemy that happens because for myself, I had to grow through this point. Like, what do I do now? What do I do? How do I organize this? Like one of my breathwork teacher in my 20s, she would say to me in her German accent, Michelle, if you want to write a dissertation on this, go ahead. But now I want you to feel. Then she'd like jam her hand into my solar plexus when I'm lying over a Zafu. But I mean, it's so fascinating to hear you say how loud the unconscious mind is, and it makes me think of like society right now. It is loud, and like I want people to. I see this as like there's a potential portal for healing, for deep, deep healing that is like escalating right now. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on like that macro relationship to the micro way that we are practicing or not practicing within ourselves.
Well, that question was also something I pondered a lot when it came to when we went through COVID, because the way I see this and the way the cardinal method approaches this is that is the law of mirrors is one of the universal laws, right? That shamanism talks a lot about. So ultimately, the outer world is, and not only an extension, but a mirror image of your inner world. That's why being in nature is so important because you're not in the noise and you have the contrast. You lived in New York City and you've lived in Montana, you know, right? You've traveled so much, so you know the outer world ultimately actually doesn't even exist on a
Mhm.
spiritual level. It's just a hologram that expresses your state of soul, your state of spirit, and your state of mind. So society is very loud. And if we were born in a very loud Western society in the 21st century, our souls are very loud inside. And I'm
Mm.
not saying you should be a hermit and go live. I did have that temptation. I wanted to live in the ashrams in Canada with the lynx and not and just see snow and no human beings because I want the silence. No. You can create silence in your soul. My one of my yogi friends said this to me. It's very easy to be spiritual in the top of the Himalayas. It's not easy to be spiritual in the traffic of India, right? It's become a meme. But the loudness of society can be, yes, it is an expression of our unconscious, frenetic, low vibrational state of soul. We do have that aspect, otherwise we would not be on this planet, right? But we also have other aspects of our souls that are quieter and that are within and that we can tap into and that can set the tone of our lives. That's what I said. That's why I said the cardinal method is at the end of the day about choosing love. If I choose love, I don't judge my parents. If I choose love, I'm not fighting with my boyfriend. If I choose love, I will say the truth to that romantic partner that I love you, but it doesn't work. Or I love you and I want it to work. Or whatever it is. Like I said, wisdom, the truth, even if it costs the relationship.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have to be loud and it doesn't have to be too much. And silence speaks. The more we silence ourselves, the more we feel the truth because the truth is felt. And when
Mm.
it's verbalized in a very accurate way in very few words.
I love it. And it's all resonance. We didn't talk about frequency yet and the frequency of the crystals, but I know we could talk forever. Yeah, there you go.
I was holding this,
Eukinite.
which is the crystal that raises vibrational frequencies, and you just mentioned it. It's like the crystals are traveling around in my hand. I'm not showing them to you, but yeah, as we speak.
Yeah. Well, this brings me to just, before just something someone could immediately do with a crystal on hand. you know,
Mhm.
like even if it's just the meditation, I'll let you answer. You know, like if someone's like, I am drawn to this crystal, how can I set it? Like, what is a practice I can set up with it immediately?
If you have no knowledge of crystals or crystal practices or anything, if you're just holding a crystal, I you will feel there are two options. The first thing you can do and the most simple thing you can do, and it's beautiful. Feel if you want to place it on your heart or your solar plexus, and that's it. Place it on your solar plexus if you need to empower yourself, or place it on your heart if you feel like you need to calm down. That's a simple technique. If you go to a metaphysical store and grab a crystal, it's drawn. It feels like it's drawing you to it because crystals choose us. We don't choose the crystals, right?
Yeah.
Place it on holding it on your solar plexus or your heart, and just breathe for 30 seconds. It will align your field and it will calm you down for sure.
I don't know what you just picked up, but I can feel it already.
It's blue kyanite, raising
Okay.
vibration. frequency.
Okay, still the blue kyanite. I'm probably remembering times when I've chosen a stone or I got your inner child. I don't know if you still sell that, the inner
Oh
child.
yeah, the inner child kits are a big one in my spiritual jewelry store. Yeah.
Yeah, I have passed them on to some folks because I knew my time had been completed, but that's an exercise.
They
I
like
could,
to travel. Yes, crystal, don't get attached to crystals. They like to travel. And if you feel like you need to give them to anybody, just flow with that. They are not attached. They like to flow.
okay, now I have a really selfish practical question, but my crystals, they're in storage right now. And I'm like, I've been thinking, like, how are they doing? You know, my friend, he helped me wrap them up like all so lovingly.
They're hibernating. They probably were used a lot and they're sleeping. They're saying, leave me alone for now. I will flow when I want to. Don't worry about
Okay, I
that.
love that. I love that. Okay, then one more question because I see this happen a lot. It's just when they break or, you know, and I don't, you know, it's not like I really don't believe or try to like superstition, you know, but from the perspective of the wisdom of the stone, can you say what that would be? Might
One
be.
One of the biggest missions of the Cardinal method is to ditch superstition and stop living from a place of fear. And this is my personal medicine because I'm a six in the Enneagram, so fear is like my big demon, right?
Mm.
But superstitious thinking comes from fear. And crystals don't know what that is because when they break, it's simply a quantum leap. It's actually a language of consciousness showing you've quantum leaped. Your energy is so big right now, it doesn't fit in the placenta where you're in or the office you're in or the home you're in. You've quantum leaped. You need to expand, and the crystal is an indication of that. So every time someone comes to me, oh my god, my crystal broke, I'm like, celebrate it. It's a quantum leap. It's in jewelry too. Whenever like oh my bracelet broke, you've quantum leaped.
Mm.
That's the reason why. And what happens, what to do with the pieces?
Mhm.
Give them to Mother Nature, to a female energy of water or to a female energy of earth, the root of a tree or the ocean or a river. Give them back to a feminine vibration of nature. Give them back to the earth or give them back to the water. If you feel like you need to keep the pieces because it's happened, this piece of sulfur, for example, it used to be like four. When I was moving from Fort Lauderdale to Aventura, it fell on the floor, broke a lot of tiny pieces, but three big pieces remained, and I kept them. It's
Mhm.
a new version of the crystal.
Mm.
So the biggest advice I can give you: do not ever feel superstitious. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's the evil eye." If it is, it was warded off. Don't give power to envy. Don't give your power away to whoever's vibrating lower than you. You know what I mean? Don't give
Yeah.
your power away to lower vibrational frequencies. It's
Yes.
that easy. Don't go into fear. Choose love. Oh,
Yeah.
you're giving me evil eye. I send you love. I surrender you to all the angels of the universe. Let me go on with my life. Choose
Yeah.
love. Don't choose fear?
Definitely. What I'm hearing too, because my work is so connected to how we move our power, how we become a vessel for it. So it's like as I'm hearing you say that, it's like love becomes the container. It's not just la 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 la. It's like there is a container, there is a design, there's in your work, I would say an architecture, also a geometry of love.
There's a structure. Crystals have internal geometry, right? So they are the foundation of it all. And
Mhm.
you've nailed it. That's it exactly. And we can't mistake love for magic thinking, or maybe it's a good idea to put an adjective there. Mature love is different from immature love. The immature love of the child is clingy, is magic thinking, la 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 la. No, the mature love of the adult creates structure and walks hand in hand with power and wisdom. When we decide to embrace our power, and when we are humble enough to choose wisdom instead of, trying to control everything, then we are in balance. And that's what mature love is about.
I want people to just like hear that and then be silent. Because I feel like it's like, uh, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, just as we close up here, how can people find you? What are the ways people can work with you?
Thank you. I have a website, paolaranova.com. I have a lot of videos on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram a lot because that's the fun part of it, right? So my website is the easiest way to reach me, and you can email me there or you can DM me on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel. If you comment on any of the videos, I will know and I will answer you. And
Mhm.
I'm so, so grateful for this opportunity for being here and for having you in my life. You are an amazing, amazing shaman and official podcaster, aren't you?
No, I just go with what I have a yes for and see where it takes me. And trusting that flow and that alignment, your work has been very helpful in finding my structure, my internal structure. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for all you do for the world. And you are such an inspiration for so many people, myself included. So
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, you guys go check out her work. It's beautiful. It's amazing. We didn't even talk about how you train people to become energy healing practitioners, but I know that's a huge facet of your work too. So, just reach out to her and get in touch.
Thank you, my love. It's
Yeah,
been
thanks
amazing.
everyone for listening. Thanks again for listening to another Fierce Wisdom interview. Like, share, follow, and make sure you're on my email list to stay connected and join any of the programs I offer. We have an incredible retreat coming up in Bali, March 11th through the 16th, 2026, that we still have spots for, along with all of my group and private coaching healing programs that you'll find at michelleboulé.com. Be in touch, and here's to making your entire life your greatest creation.